Hit. Boom. There we go. Perfect. Before we get started, how are you guys doing? Tom, are you well?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, sun shining in Yorkshire, so can't ask for more than that.
Absolutely right. In fact, it's a very rare sight that on your watch, or you can't see it. I've just got all the sun icons. I've got my weather on my watch. I know that sounds such a geeky thing to do, but weather on my watch, and it's such a nice feeling for it not to be wind.
Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah. Did you have any travesties whilst the wind was blowing? Was it all okay?
No, there was some. We're in Ilkley, so it's in the valley, so there was a lot of flooding over our way, and yeah, got a bit cut off for a while, but nothing too dramatic. We're used to being stuck in our houses and stuff like that, aren't we? So
this is right. As long as the takeaway driver can get through, and they usually can pretty much do anything.
They find a way. Yeah, the DPD drivers, there was all sorts of stuff with pictures of them like stuck in the middle of a field because they tried to just drive around it and go completely off-road.
Because that's the smart thing to do. Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Commitment.
Well, I'd normally be sat in the shed right now, and I must admit, the shed's it's a fairly big old lump, but in the wind, honestly, I was expecting, the whole thing is shaking. I was expecting like a Wizard of Oz moment at any time, and you'll just find me my legs sticking out of underneath this wooden shed on the floor somewhere in Otley.
Yeah,
but
love it.
I was all right. I was all right.
You've gone for sturdier ground today.
Yep. Although the lighting's not all that cracking, but that's all right. I'll work with it. Okay. Morning, everybody. Morning. Welcome. Take a seat, and we shall very shortly get underway. I think we're probably around about there. Like I said, we've had some really, really good sign-ups for this one, and I suspect that a lot of people will be wanting to watch this on demand, and that's kind of a new flavor. We always kind of try to push for as much physical attendance as possible, but actually I think the on-demand approach is the answer moving forward, because just how we like to use things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get down to business. All right. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the dead air time here. Just moving you guys over there so I can fit you all in. Okay, right. So let's get started. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about how you can use what we're calling hyper-personalization. It's a bit of a buzzword in the industry right now to attract more candidates. I don't know, we call it in 2022, but we don't care, because this is a movement that's happening for the next decade or so. So forget the 2022 bit. It's how do we attract more candidates in a market that's getting harder. And the before we start, the rhetoric that I hear throughout the industry from the many recruiters that we deal with and the various different bodies is the same, and that is the fact candidate attraction's getting harder. And it depends, because I hear that same story presented to me as there are no candidates, or candidate attraction's getting harder. Now, I don't know about your view on this, guys, but my view is nobody in the world just vanished. Everybody's still there. It's attraction that's got harder. So Tom, have you observed the problem? Do you hear the same things?
Yeah, definitely. I think speaking to people, and then from our own experience as well, it's definitely a tricky market out there. And it's obviously led to us doing things like this with you to share the problem, share our experience with it, some kind of come up with some solutions that help get to the bottom of it. And we have done some hiring recently for ourselves, and been trialing various bits and bobs that have helped cut through the noise. That we're obviously going to go into some of those things today, so looking forward to sharing it.
So the point is, it's fixable, right?
100%. Yeah, I think as you said there, it's the same amount of people are still there. There's still humans out there doing jobs and wanting to work, and there's still all the same figures of 70% of people out there being disengaged with their work, and all these different those kind of elements haven't really shifted. I think obviously there's been some changes in the world over the last couple of years that have probably moved people's mindsets a bit. Maybe they're looking for more stability, maybe they're scared for a move, But again, from our own kind of branding perspective and things that we're doing internally, we're trying to put more focus on making ourselves stand out to people, and so that the message that we share with candidates makes them interested. I don't think you can just be a same old organization sharing the same message as everyone else anymore. You've got to do something that really makes you stand out.
Cool. Okay, so let's crack on with our introduction. So why we're here. So firstly, my name's Adam Oldfield. I'm CEO of Force 24. I've been in the marketing automation industry for about 15 years now, and the marketing industry for a little over 20, which is really quite depressing in some senses, but empowering in others. We work with about 6,000 UK-based marketeers. Some of them are within the recruitment and employment industry, or we work with a much wider, broader market, which is great actually, because one of the things that we've observed is recruitment businesses are starting to operate like traditional B2C marketeers. We're starting to recognize that we're connecting with a human being on the end of the email, on the end of the phone or whatever. And some of the same emotional drivers that we need to pull if we're buying broadband or whatever are potentially the same as what we as a business we need to pull. So it's great having that wider industry experience to bring into the market as well. So we work with about 150 UK-based recruitment agencies, somewhere in that number. And lots of great things are being observed. So that's me. So Tom, Ben, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm Tom Mclaughlin. I'm the founder of Growth Recruits. So we're a specialist digital marketing agency for the recruitment sector. We've kind of, again, like Adam says, been kind of zoning into how niching down can help. And we actually started as a travel specialist agency more than 10 years ago. So we've been running that side of things, and we actually had a client who was a recruitment specialist in travel, had some really great results with them. And then when the pandemic hit, it prompted us to think, how can we bring more stability to our business? And we decided we'd set up a kind of second agency that specialized in the recruitment sector as well. So yeah, again, as Adam said, that broader knowledge of how things work in other sectors and industries has been instrumental in how we direct our offering and what we do now. But it's also been something that's evolved over the last couple of years to, hearing from people in the sector, hearing what their challenges are, and the offering is evolving so that, rather it just being a template of what we've done in other sectors, it's, there's actually some things that we're doing closely related to what we're talking about today that we've had in beta testing, getting really fantastic results from. So yeah, it's been a good start over the last couple of years, and we're excited to keep growing.
Brilliant. Okay, and Ben, do you want to give us an introduction?
Yeah, I'm Ben. I'm the marketing manager here at Growth Recruits. So I'm usually in the weeds with a lot of recruitment companies like you guys, and helping figure out everything from lead gen strategy to today the topic on how we can attract more candidates. So hopefully I can give you some insight from some work we're currently doing, and some work we're kind of doing in the background to kind of shape our service into this candidate attraction piece. So
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, look, let's get into the meat. And that is, what the heck is hyper-personalization? And so what I'll do is firstly, anybody out there, please feel free. I want you to fire questions in whenever you come up with something, throw it into the chat. And we'll sort of either deal with it there and then, or we'll deal with it as we come to that particular section. So what we're going to talk about now is sort of what is hyper-personalization and why it's going to help businesses moving forward. And sort of let's break it down into its components, because ultimately hyper-personalization isn't really a thing. Okay, it's just a new name for a collective of things, and it's just about saying that hyper-personalization is it's like making bread. Yes, it's flour, water. I don't know what else goes in bread. But anyway, the point is those components make bread, and hyper-personalization is like bread. So let's have a talk about that. Tom or Ben, do you want to give us your view of what the component parts are in terms of what hyper-personalization is and why you think it's important?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. So I think hyper-personalization is really at the core of it. It's about being human and being authentic. People want to deal with people don't want to deal with businesses. It's a human they're talking to at the end of the day. And by applying kind of human traits to outreach, whether it's through email or social media or through your ads, through your job descriptions, trying to serve kind of relevant messaging that's human is kind of key. And it's kind of going away from that traditional scattergun approach, one to many, kind of throwing a very generic message to 1,000 people. It's about honing that message down to serve that one-to-one approach, a highly tuned segment of people.
Do you know, that's interesting you say that, Ben. So what we're saying is that, you know, what essentially you're saying is we want to get from being this, in the old days, we used to send out a newsletter once a month. And think of the futility of that. Think of the futility. One single message blasted out to 50,000 people or 10,000, whatever it is. And, you know, we're going to get some candidates from this, or we're going to get some clients from this. You know, it's not going to happen, the futility. So what you're saying, Ben, is that the fact that we've got to get more niche, we've got to get smaller, tighter data segments. Why?
So it's about message relevancy, right? Like if you've got a database full of everything from developers to field service engineers in manufacturing, those two audiences have got completely different challenges. They've got completely different work environments. They're after completely different things out of their careers. So one message across, again, if you break down your audience, you might have 30 different types of candidate profile there, right? And one message just isn't enough anymore. It's kind of, how can we address the individual challenges and be more relevant?
Let me jump in there. That I'm trying to sort of I'm scratching the point. I'm playing devil's advocate. So the point that you're saying there is like, in the old days, we'd say, oh, no, but we personalize our emails. So what I do is I say, hi, Ben. Oh, you nailed it. You've got first name in there. Okay, brilliant. But I actually didn't. I said, hi, Brook.
Yeah.
That was worse. We'll come on to data quality in a moment. But the point is then, what you're saying then, it isn't okay for me to say, we have vacancies in insert industry that you might be interested in. What you're saying is that we all have different needs, different requirements, and we really need to connect to them. So that the job now is on the marketeer, not to just control the quality of the data, but actually control the quality of the message that goes to that specific group. Now, a lot of businesses, they say they offload that into the consultants. And they say the consultants need to do it. But what pitfalls do you foresee if we're saying, no, consultants can just build their own things, their own lists, and they can just bash out what they want? Do you see pitfalls in there, Tom or Ben, whichever?
I certainly think in terms of like the quality of the ad or the quality of the description of the business or whatever that is, that comes from the place themselves. That comes from employer brand. Like, what things are you putting in there? There's only so much the consultant can do with the information that they're given. They can't reinvent a business off the back of a boringly written job description that gets flung at them. So I think you've got all parties involved need to kind of be on board with the approach and providing the relevant information that's needed, because if they're all looked at in silos and people aren't kind of all on board with that approach, then you got a big challenge that you probably can't overcome.
I guess what you're saying here is it's moving from strategic it's moving from tactical to strategic. And so tactical is, in my simple terms, tactical is where, it's Monday, I need to get a campaign out to these guys. And strategic is where I'm looking at a longer term picture of saying, look, I need my brand to have value. I need my brand to be understood by people. I need people to think, I'll go to those guys. And that's the residue, that's the halo effect of brand. And that comes from strategic thinking, doesn't it? Where it says, sure, you might be doing some tactical interventions, but make sure you follow these guidelines. And those guidelines are set and controlled by the business, and people understand what they are. Is that a fair synopsis of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, particularly given the kind of market and changes and the landscape change that's happened over the last couple of years because of the pandemic, I do think like stability has become more of a thing for people. And so for them to be interested and drawn in to make a change and go somewhere new and, where it is a bit unstable, are they, is it going to be last in, first out kind of thing. If something turns and goes wrong, you know, there needs to be something pretty significant that makes them think, yeah, it's worth taking the jump with that. And like I said before, if you are not good at showing off why you are a great choice and syncing that with the person themselves and what their requirements are and joining the dots together, then it's not going to work. And again, you know, hyper-personalization is the way of connecting those dots so that they get the right message, and you zone into the thing that particularly will appeal to that candidate rather than the other one over here.
So what you're saying is, I mean, this is what we've observed is the consultant style comms tends to be very, very, again, tactical. And what we're saying is then that they tend to be very about the now. It's about there's something that I want to talk to you about right now. Whereas the more strategic comms that have planned out an approach, we're able to then embed some of the values over time that we want you to take away from us as a brand. That's right. You know, ultimately we've got a number of different recruiters on this call now, different businesses, different shapes, different sizes, different personalities, everything. There has to be something that differentiates you all. And if we're all just following a consultant-led messaging style, where's that differentiation, guys? This is the point. Own that channel, own it, and really sort of guide these guys and have your own layer of marketing communications that are more strategic, sat above the top. That's my belief. Anything you guys want to say on that before we move on to the challenges we face?
Yeah, I think I would just throw in there that it is, as you say, that idea of just getting a job in and going and trying to fill that job and then kind of forgetting about it and just wait until the next job comes in. I think it is a more collaborative approach with the clients that you're working with the businesses that you're working with, to try and emphasize the importance of that. And, you know, obviously that, again, there's loads of stats out there about hiring the wrong people and how much you lose from that, and kind of having that conversation of it's worth putting time, effort, budget potentially into enhancing your own brand, so that when it comes to the one-off things where you need to fill roles, that it's a much easier job and you're much more likely to get good people that hang around and kind of save in the long run by doing that.
Yeah, sure. Brilliant. I mean, have you ever heard of a thing called the lag of latent potential? You may have done it. It's when you switch something for, you know, say, you know, I get results from doing what I'm doing right now. So I think all I need to do is amplify what I'm doing now. And actually the reality is that reaches a peak where it caps out. So just putting more people on the floor, more caps out, or the efficiencies and the business unit economics change, and it's no longer possible to continue to grow in that way. So the lag of latent potential says that I know that in order to do something better, I need to be more strategic, I need to build long-term value. But unfortunately, there's this lag before that build comes. But the graph that is often displayed when they talk about lag of latent potential goes very much like this, whoop, straight up like that. And when it starts to bite, it accelerates beyond where you could have actually feasibly have got to using your existing tactical approaches. Has anybody out there got any questions at this point? Firing in. Do we think we're all waffling, or is this useful? All right, don't answer that one. Good, nobody's answered it. All right, look, let's move on. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you guys are facing, and we're going to get into how you can resolve those. So obviously, poor data quality. Personalization thrives from good data quality. We know that. We know that we have a problem because quite often we as marketeers perhaps haven't necessarily bred the value of quality data capture into our organization, and therefore we're sat on legacy data that where instead of having first name, it'll say, I think it's John, but don't say John in case it's not John, you know, and that's not really a first name, is it? And things like that, where emails, we've guessed the email address, or we've put in the phone number field, do not phone this guy, or, you know, whatever it may be, using the appropriate terms. Quality of data is critical. Do you have any tips that you can do, you can give anybody out there that can help get consultants on board? Ultimately, most of the data comes from the consultants. What do we do? How do we resolve this?
So I think there's a couple of different plays here, I suppose. So there's the kind of the whole enrichment piece. I think speaking to recruiters on a daily basis, it's the ATS is the candidate graveyard, right? It's where the candidate data goes to die, no one updates it. So I think there's a couple of plays, as I mentioned. So there's using tools to enrich that data. So there's tools that sync with your ATS database and will constantly update the data to make sure that it's the most relevant, it's the most up-to-date information without you having to do the manual slog work. So tools like Zoom Info, Lusher, Apollo are a few. There's hundreds that do this kind of work. They're pretty cost effective if you've got a large database. So it's a really good way of keeping your data up to date. In terms of being a little bit more intent driven with this kind of thing, it's distributing email marketing and then segmenting based on how users are interacting with your communication. So depending on what they're clicking on, you can be segmenting them in certain interest groups, for example, or how engaged they are, or even simple polls asking if they're open for work at the moment. A click then puts them into a pot that says these guys are looking for work, right? So I think there's a bunch of different things, but I think email marketing, segmentation, trying to drive engagement and then learn from that engagement and segment from that engagement is key. As well as, I think, again, we can go on, this is probably a topic of its own for an hour, but opt-in strategies. So having opt-ins on certain candidate-facing pages, which, again, show what they're interested in by what they're opting into, right? And then serving messaging based on that thing they're opting into. So there's a ton of different approaches there.
Okay. Well, listen. Go on, Tom. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, I think this ties into some of the things Ben's saying there is tying into your lag to latent potential. Was it the phrase? There we go. I am listening. With these, and Ben's talking about like opt-ins on the site and things like that. It's, everyone who you're engaging with shouldn't just be old candidates that you got in touch with or that happen to be in your database. You want to be doing things to engage with people that aren't necessarily specifically looking for a job right now, that you get in and then you engage with them. And that lag, it's like you might be building a database of lots of people that like your chat, like your vibe. They're not looking for something right now, or maybe the right thing isn't quite there, but maybe in 6 months' time, they become engaged with you. They trust you. They think, I like what these people are talking about, and they're probably going to advise me in a good way. And then in 6 months' time, suddenly that moment comes where they see a job they like, or they decide they're ready for a move or whatever, and that prompts them to do it. But it has to be that mindset of, I'm not trying to fill a job tomorrow. That it's if it's not someone that's interested in that, then they're no use to me. I'll save that for another day. It's kind of having that longer term mindset there.
Yeah, the consumer brands do this beautifully, don't they? And this is the piece that I want you guys to be really thinking about is, years ago, and I'm talking a lot of years, maybe 30 years ago, I think it was Mars Pet Food. And I've regaled many webinar attendee of this particular story in the past, but Mars Pet Food had 3 particular cat food types. They had the cheap junk that was literally anything they could get inside it. They had the medium one, which was a little bit more, and then they had the top of the range, the little one that comes in the little trays that, treating tiddles to a fine lobster dinner every night, whatever. And in order to try and connect with their audience, they needed to be able to say, okay, which one are you? You might have a cat, but we don't know which one you are. And so what they did is, rather than saying, hey, look, which cat food do you want to buy? They said, where does your cat sleep at night? So what this is it's like modern day clickbait, really, isn't it? Because it creates the debate. Where does your cat sleep at night? And there's 3 options. I haven't the foggiest, somewhere in the house, or in my bed with me. And so that's a really smart way. And so we've taken that years later, and we then said, a fitted furniture manufacturer, a big fitted furniture manufacturer, and we said, let's do this. Let's create that debate, and let's get engagement that tells us about people. And we did this thing where it was, should shoes be allowed in the bedroom? Tom, should they be allowed in the bedroom?
Absolutely not.
Ben?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. And we all know the answer to that, don't we? We all know the answer, but we want to jump. We've all basically, we're asking opinion we're asking a question that everybody's got an opinion on, aren't we? Yeah. And we're not saying, hey, come and buy pet food. Hey, come and buy a fitted bedroom. We're creating a debate. And that's all I can ask for 99% of my audience at any one time. Just a debate, just to listen to us. Because how many candidates do we place each month? Divide that by the total number of contacts we have in our data set. Let's think about that for a moment and think, okay, well, that's all we need to do today is create the debate. And those that then when they're ready, we'll start to talk to them. Okay, one thing you guys didn't talk about too much, which is a bit of a bugbear for me, is the fact that I see, and you know, I can speak freely because I'm not in the industry per se, is the fact that consultants are quite often seen as they're gods. We must not ever question them or touch them or change what they do because they've got a difficult enough job. The reality of it is we need to show these consultants the value of collecting quality data through the techniques that you guys have been talking about. And then when I come to put junk in the ATS, I'm not going to be surprised when the quality of my engagement is very, very low. And my colleagues that are towing the line and are enriching data, if I'm doing everything in just through making notes on the contact record, that's valueless to marketing, isn't it? But if marketing have set a load of fields that say, this would really help us if you could tell us if he's in market, questioning out of 10, how likely is he to be in market? What's he looking for out of a new career? Is it X, Y, or Z? All that kind of information that consultants are having, 50 conversations a day, average agency with 10 guys, that's 500 conversations a day, 500 records a day that we can be improving. That's 2,500 records a week. Per month, that's 10,000 contacts that we've truly enriched if we could just get the buy-in of the guys on the ground. So that's a difficult challenge, guys. I recognize that one, but it's all about showing value, not mandating that they've got to do it. Okay, right. So a lot of you guys out there might be experiencing some poor engagement at the moment. So you're talking about this piece that we said before, where have they all gone? Well, they've not gone anywhere. They're all still there, but you might be getting poor engagement. So why is this? Guys, have you got any thoughts on why people might be getting poor engagement out there? Ben, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll hop in first. I mean, time obviously is a big part of it. I think often the marketing departments of whether it's in-house places, consultants, time is always the thing that there's never enough of. And so when it comes to doing the things they need to do that were, some of the things we've touched on already, it just never makes it to the top of the list because they're trying to fill the role for tomorrow. So, there's a few things that can come into that. I think on the content side, for example, there's a lot more you can do with that. Everyone maybe thinks every time I approach a new piece of content, I've got to make it from scratch. I've got to come up with some massive thing that involves loads of members of the team. Whereas actually the concept of content recycling is repurposing is something that is not done a lot out there. Certainly with the people where we work with and we talk to, they don't really understand how that can work. And the reality is that you could spend one kind of period of time creating a really big wholesome piece of content, and then you could use that for the next 6 months, breaking it down into individual blog posts. It could be an ebook initially. You could record a webinar or a podcast and then break that down into lots of different clips that you share little snippets of over time. You translate that, you transcribe that podcast or that webinar, and you release it as lots of different kind of text pieces of content. It then goes out on your social media. So that idea of, we don't need a person here tapping away writing a blog post every day to create content. I think if people can get around that, then they'll create a lot more time for themselves. And again, going back to the data point, you start to sink that back in, and you see better engagement coming from that because you're feeding good content on a consistent basis. You start to reduce the amount of time that individuals are having to spend on it. And when you get the flywheel going like that, it can have a really big impact.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, is there anything that you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I suppose in the kind of the engagement piece standing out, I think a lot of recruitment businesses that we start working with, they're completely reliant on the job description they've got from the employer. It's all about kind of what they're looking for. There's nothing about what's in it for the candidate. There may be a line on benefits that aren't really benefits. Like 20 days holiday, it's like it's not a benefit, right? So I think making job ads instead of job descriptions is key. So working with the companies you're working on behalf of to figure out what's actually in it for the candidate, what makes their job different to a job of a competitor. And usually when you put two job descriptions side by side, they're exactly the same. And it's putting things in those ads that are more focused on what's in it for the candidate, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I can see that.
Can I jump in? I've got a question on that for Ben. Just like how would people do that? So saying make it different. Can you give some examples of how that might look? What sort of things do make them different?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of different things. So I'll send an example of one of our internal pieces that we've done post conversation, but it's kind of telling a story about a day in the life at an organization, what that looks like, what's really in it for the candidate, what does progression actually look like on the ground, what does salary growth actually look like on the ground, what training is involved, and it's all focused on what's in it for the candidate, right? I think job descriptions tend to be what the company's looking for, not what's in it for the candidate. And at the end of the day, the candidate wants to know kind of why is it worth the move, right? And I just think the majority of job descriptions just don't do that whatsoever. So I'm sure post this webinar we can send around some really good examples of job ads that are really standing out from the crowd and driving a ton of engagement.
Cool, that'd be great. We're gonna send this link round, by the way. Thank you for asking, Lisa. Yes, we'll send the link out, and we'll send around some examples. I think we just to touch on some of the issues that we've talked about there, and then bringing it back into hyper-personalization is firstly what we're saying is we create that benefit, we create that cut through, great, but what we're doing as marketeers, we're focusing on the wrong part of the job. So when I think about actually what generates the cut through, it's the quality of the idea, it's the quality of the content, how well thought out it is, and then as a marketeer, I then spend 3 months trying to build this campaign. I'm building landing pages, I'm trying to build blog posts, I'm trying to pull together videos. I need to, I say, commodify all of these things and get a standard formula so I can pretty much slot into it and just put that great idea that I've spent time doing. So my email templates should be commodified. I'm just changing words largely. I'm changing simple layouts, and it's that kind of stuff that holds us up. So you have to look at how we really break this. We're going to move on to budget in a moment. So we've talked about the fact that it's too hard, it's very sluggish, it's the quality of the content, we've got to be thought-provoking, we've got to create cut through, but how do I do that when I need to do 10 times more of it because I've got lots of different verticals? And one of the questions that we've got is around budget spend on marketing. I'd love to know if anybody in this audience today is spending on marketing the percentage that's actually been sort of banded around for most B2B and B2C businesses as the percentage of revenue. Tom, do you know what that is?
I don't actually. I don't know. Interested to get it as a stat.
Between 8.6 and 11.3%, depending on industry, of your total revenue. So that's quite an interesting one, really. And it's just sense check that in your own minds. How much does my marketing function cost me? And, I might have a marketeer, full-time, part-time. I might be using one of my consultants part-time, whatever it is. Put that cost together, put any other paid costs in there for marketing to calculate what it is. And it should be, on average, about 10% of your total revenue. So if you're doing 2 million quid a year, total revenue is obviously 200 grand. We need to be spending 200 grand a year on marketing. We want to grow to 4 million. This is the interesting part. If I want to grow to 4 million, I have to spend the amount of the 4 million, 10% of the 4 million to get to 4 million. I don't just keep spending the 2 million because that generates what I'm getting. And so growth mindset is a very different mindset again, but let's come on to that a different time. But how many of your clients do you think are living and breathing that? It's great for an agency to answer that question, isn't it? Are they spending enough money with you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, probably pretty questionable, Adam. I think it's like you say, I think it comes into people doing what they've always done, and it is hard to break them out of that. And yeah, going to the growth mindset thing, going all the way back to the beginning and asking yourself, what do I want to do with my business? Do I want to grow? Maybe there's people out there who are quite happy where they are and they're just ticking along and they just want to sort of keep filling the funnel and it empties and it just keeps you at the same level. But those people who do want to build, do want to grow, do want to increase the revenue, like you say, they've got to they can't expect to put the same things in and expect something different to come out the other end, because yeah, it's not going to happen.
Totally agree. And James, thank you very much for your question. Your question is, but where's the line between marketing and operations? Some activities be considered part of both, surely. Well, yeah, but if it's a marketing operation, if it's a marketing job being performed by an operations department, then that sort of is the blurred line that you've got to factor in. It's entirely up to you, really. Strictly speaking, if it's a marketing piece of work, if you're talking about somebody implementing CRM, or an ATS in your environment, that's an operations job. That comes out of the operations budget. Marketing then get to benefit from that. If you're talking about somebody from operations building emails, then that's straightforward marketing job. Drop my microphone. That's a straightforward marketing job that salary should be cut across. So ops and marketing do sit hand in hand quite oftenly, but often, but you need to be able to make sure that you can understand what that spend percentage is. It's a rough guess, and that was a survey by a company called Thrive Marcoms that was done with I think a couple of thousand recruitment-based CMOs, and the title of the article, "How much does recruitment marketing cost?" So it should be fairly accurate and very current. Anything else to add on that, Ben? Do you think people are spending enough money and allocating the appropriate resource?
It's difficult to say, right? I think yeah, it's a case of figuring out what your current marketing spend is, right, and what ROI you're getting on that, and then having a baseline to then scale up. But I think a lot of companies don't really understand what ROI they're getting from marketing. It's just too siloed, or there's data hidden in different places, and it's just kind of collating all that together and figuring out what that benchmark is to then kind of have those budget discussions, right? You need to understand what your current ROI is on your current spend before trying to figure out how you can scale that. Yeah.
And I think there's like obviously the breakdown of like what those numbers are doing, and yeah, there's one of the things we're talking about here is like time, which obviously is people, and yeah, do you have a marketing person internally? Do you bring someone in to do that stuff? And then there's the like tech direct cost of paying for tools that are gonna do things. And yeah, one of the things that we're going to come on to is kind of various tools that people can use for various different activities. But that certainly is a place where investment can, without needing to hire loads of people and worry about those things, yeah, you can invest in the tech and save a lot of time doing that way.
Yeah, just on that point, that's a really good point, Tom. And on that point, it's one of the critical success factors that I rely on for businesses in this sector is, a lot of businesses try to create that sort of distributed working environment where we lean on contractors, we lean on agencies to undertake certain pieces of work. And I agree to an extent. And the point is, I think any recruitment business with more than a few consultants plus the directors needs to have a dedicated marketing professional within the organization to own those agency relationships, even if they're not doing the work. But I'm sure you'll have sensed this frustration before, working with a busy recruitment director it's not their primary job to execute marketing communications, and you're rubbing alongside a really busy guy or girl, and it's not effective. Even if it's a commitment that you need to make in the direction of travel that you want to go. If your revenue target is X, spend a proportion of that revenue now on trying to get there. And I think a critical hire for me is having somebody to own marketing communications internally. You know, can it be a consultant working part-time? Well, if you don't really want, I mean, you know, think of the pound for pound resource, you know, a part-time consultant would be probably the same as a full-time member of staff. And, you know, the actual ownership and dedication to your brand that person's going to have, you know, it's critical. But, you know, I want marketeers in this industry. I want this to grow massively. I want them focused. And I'm sure you guys will agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, the engagement thing comes into it, as like we keep talking about engagement with candidates, like engagement with your own staff, like it's the same. If they're in and bought into it, they're way more engaged in trying to have success than a consultant who's working on a part-time basis or something like that.
Yeah. The role of marketing is often seen as being, we get new candidates and new clients. Well, it's not. It's internal comms as well. You know, ownership of those internal comms and getting buy-in for what's going on. The Christmas party, yeah, that's a marketing thing. You know, and really, you know, why are we spending money on a Christmas party? Is it just to say thanks, or is it actually we want you to live and breathe our values as we do? And actually, we're going to use that Christmas party as an opportunity to try and demonstrate some of our values so you can buy into what we're talking about. Anyway, we're waffling now. That's just my own personal rant. Anyway, let's move on. You know, talking about one of the things, I've got to say it. I have to say, marketing automation, it's the answer to all things, always, forever. Doesn't matter if you're feeling hungry, marketing automation can answer that problem. Doesn't matter. Automation actually in this instance is a big help, because it's about saying that, you know, you deploy your effort in neat little chunks with marketing automation. I think of it as like pedaling a bike up a hill. You're pedaling up the hill, you have to keep pedaling. As soon as you go downhill, you stop pedaling, but you still keep going forwards. That's marketing automation. When you don't have marketing automation, you have to pedal downhill. And guess what? You can only go as fast as your feet will allow you. So you're losing that momentum that you're building through those short, bite-sized chunks of effort. So automation allows you to set up the rules, set up, and by the way, you know, we spoke at the moment about being real people, you know, talking to people. That does not mean every communication that you send out has to pretend that it's from a real person. That's actually quite the opposite, because that is very disingenuous. I find it's, you know, use those plain text comms sparingly, you know, and I've got to build quality content that people can buy into. And plain text, it's harder for me to read than actually a well-designed Silicon Valley style, do you want this, or where does your cat sleep at night style communication. So you use that sort of stuff sparingly. Okay, guys, I'm going to move on. Should we talk about the tech?
Yeah.
So I touched on that right now. So go on, give me your view. Ben, do you want to go first? Talk about the tech. What do you use?
Yeah, so we use a bunch of different tools. So I think from a candidate attraction point of view, I think there's a couple of different things here. So it's not being reliant on one tool. I feel like LinkedIn is the place every recruiter goes. It's super valuable, right? And you're probably getting a ton of placements through it, but it's not the only place. I think, for example, we've worked with recruitment companies in the past to, be where your candidates are. So for example, developers, some developers are on LinkedIn, but the majority of developers, all developers are on GitHub, they're on Stack Overflow. It's engaging with people on these sites, on these tools, looking for content writers, for example, Quora, Substack, niche blogs. This is where these people are and where they're hanging out. And not a lot of recruiters are reaching out on these tools. So from a candidate attraction point of view, key. In terms of automation, there's
just before you go into automation, Ben. Just before you go into it, is that the sort of work that you do for the guys? So I come to you and say, I'm a recruiter, I work in the oil and gas industry, and I'm trying to attract X. would you then perform that? Is that a project that you then take and say, look, you know, we've done some analysis and we now recognize at these places? Is that how you can help businesses?
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's through doing direct outreach, referencing work they've got on these tools. So if it's a developer, we could be referencing a project that they've got, a personal project that they've got in a coding language that we're trying to hire for. Yeah, I think it could also be social ads. So we could be running ads on these platforms to get in front of the people that are on them. And what you tend to find is on advertising on, like, yeah, things like Quora and GitHub, it tends to be a hell of a lot cheaper than doing it on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's the kind of the place everyone goes to advertise. You've got a hell of a lot more competition there. So yeah, multiple channels across these tools. So yeah, if anyone here needs any help with any of that, reach out, and I'll be more than happy to chat through how, yeah, using some of these other tools could be a really good way of attracting that talent that other recruiters aren't doing.
Yeah, Ben, for me, that's one of the big things for these guys on the call that you guys really offer that's not slightly different, that's totally different. It's that MarTech experience of things that they might not be using. And, you know, a call with you guys could save them hours a month. You know, just, you know, some of the things like Phantom Buster. We talked about Phantom Buster a while ago. You know, it's like, show them, tell them what the hell is Phantom Buster. You don't need to tell them right now. I know what it is, but the point is, you know, a call with you could really, you know, somebody could find out, oh my God, I can do that. Yeah, really? Wow, that's cool. And that's a really big thing. So I'd encourage anybody on this call, reach out to the guys, and you know, obviously links will be sent out after this webinar, and a simple Google of growth recruits, I'm sure we'll find you. But reach out to these guys, and then there's things that you can pick up that you perhaps didn't know, or maybe it's worth nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Yeah, I think one of the other things I'd throw in there is some people might be hearing that kind of description of what Ben's saying and like, oh, I've got this system that I follow now, and we've got, you know, we know how it works, and it might be other people in the business implementing this system, and this idea of having to go to different places every time and start from scratch and understand it sounds like a right pain. Like, and I've got an ATS that's full of people I can contact, like 500 people with a job, like in the snap of a finger, whereas I might only find like 20 people with all this effort going to these places. But if you boil it all the way back to the beginning of like what you're trying to achieve, you're trying to place someone, contacting 20 people in that, again, hyper-personalized way that takes lots of time is far better, far more efficient than throwing out a thing and paying for loads of money to go on job boards and all these kind of things that eventually don't bring anyone in, or bring low quality people in that aren't the right fit. So
I'd agree, Tom. And I think the point is that you know, I agree with everything you've said, except for that it takes loads of time, because that's the bit that we can commodify. That's the bit we can get smart at. And that's the bit that it doesn't have to take a lot of time. You know, take a look at next time you're browsing LinkedIn, you're browsing Facebook, you're browsing Instagram, you're browsing whatever. It's all user-generated content. User-generated content that I snapped on my iPhone. And, you know, it's not high production value graphics. It's all simple, very easy user-generated stuff. I'm not saying that our marketing has to go downhill and we'd be very unprofessional, but it's not the bells and whistles that makes the difference. It's the quality of the idea executed in a timely fashion that makes the difference. And I would say that's an important differentiation. I obviously want to say Force 24 fits beautifully within every single every business, not just recruitment businesses world. And, you know, our specific USP in the market is the fact that our feature stack plays beautifully with Bullhorn, Vincherry, Mercury, you name it, in Salesforce, all the traditional CRMs, all the big ATSs as well we integrate with. And what we do is we have a feature stack that enables you to do all of this stuff very, very effectively and very quickly. But we offer this promise of free training and support for life on a 2-minute SLA. So, you know, today it's you doing this, tomorrow it's a junior or a grad or somebody else. And our proposition is that we will offer our training and support to those guys when they start, and we'll show you how to get the most out of our technology. So now you might then, that leaves gaps for things like the creative, the ideas, you know, and that's where these guys come in. And it's those synergies that say, you know, a sole recruiter within a business can't be all things to all men, but with an appropriate budget can deliver magical things. And that's really what I'm wanting to play with at the moment. So guys, if you were to give me what it is that makes the difference for you, and what hyper-personalization as a summary, is a simple blast, what would it be? Putting you on the spot there, Tom.
Ben, you take it first.
Let Tom do the thinking.
Take the spot, put it on Ben. I think, yeah, in a sentence, it's being more relevant and focusing on one-on-one. If I could stick it in a sentence, that'd be the thing. Be more human. Incorporate video into your outreach. I think that's one thing I'd if you can go away and try something now for free, it'd be install Vidyard, which is a free video tool, into your browser and start recording videos and outreaching candidates. And I guarantee you'll see a hell of a lot better response initially. Just if you could just one little action you could do and be a little bit more human in your outreach. That's it, I think.
Be more human in your outreach. I think that's the key takeaway. Be more human. And just to add to that, I always say marketeers should be able to stand back and look at that work and say, would I engage with this? And that is always the acid test. Would I look at this, compare it against what I look at all day, every day on my phone, on social media, on email, whatever? Is this cool? If my face was on the thing saying, I built this, would I be proud, or would I think, And if we hold those standards dear, be more human and do good stuff.
Yeah. The only thing I'd throw in is the not just thinking about it as a tech thing. Like it is important to have the storytelling element of it, the human thing, the employer brand part of that. Don't just expect a tool to come in and solve this problem for you. There's two parts to that, and if you put them together, that's what will kind of put it on steroids and make it really work for you.
Except for Force 24, obviously, because that does just fix everything.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. The automation needs to be there. Together, Adam, together.
Yeah, absolutely. The engine needs to exist. And okay, well, thank you. So okay, I can echo both of those sentiments, and I totally agree. I think hyper-personalization, Ben, is absolutely about being more human. And being absolutely proud about it. And Tom, it's not about thinking that there's a silver bullet out there that's just going to fix everything. It's not that at all. Actually, it's about extending your own values out to your candidates, out to your clients, and really not letting second best be presented to these guys, and being really proud owners of our marketing function. I think that's critical. But getting down and dirty with those smaller data segments and simplifying the process. And you know what? You made a point, actually, Tom. If I'm sending an email campaign out to 20 people, imagine that, going up to MailChimp, uploading 20 people and thinking, oh, this is going to be worthwhile, pressing send. It's not going to, what? But the point is, if we are hyper-personalized, all we need is one, maybe two, and that lands, and that creates instant value. Obviously, you don't need MailChimp in that agreement. You use Force 24. But the point that I want to make is that actually that's our old school thinking. Our old school thinking says we get a 10, 20% open rate, we get a click rate of whatever. So if I'm doing 20 people, the likelihood of getting something is 0. No, new school thinking says, well, really, I should be at about 50, 60% open rate. I should be at about a 40% click rate. And I should be then at about a 30, 40% goal rate off the back of that. That says I can load 20 people up. It'll cost me 1 pence to distribute those communications, and I'm likely to get a candidate off the back of it. That's new school thinking. And we can show you, book a demo with our team, because our team, the product expert team are hot in this industry right now. They're spending a lot of time, and they can show you how you get those conversion rates and what you do. And a lot of it is simple maths. It's really, really straightforward. So look, how do we get in touch with you guys, Tom? What do we do? How do we do it?
Yeah, so we're growthrecruits.com. So if you just go to the website, we've got a load of information there about us. You can ask for a free proposal, free call there. We've also got some cool free information, ebooks and things that you can download. And there's also something, as we touched on earlier on, that we've been kind of trialing in the background, which is really zoned into this process of candidate attraction. So if you want to hear more about that and be one of the first out the blocks using it, then yeah, let us know, and we'd love to tell you more about it.
Cool, brilliant. All right, that's awesome. And force24.com. Just please go and have a look. Actually, do you know what? At about 1 o'clock today, we're not sure. We're putting our new website live.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's really exciting. And the reason we're doing it is because we've moved to this model of clear and transparent pricing. So I want you guys to be able to log on and just move some sliders around and see exactly how much you're going to save. I like the way I did that there. I didn't say how much it's going to cost. See how much you're going to save each month from using Force 24, because we are a comparable product in terms of price to something like MailChimp. Obviously, when you're using it properly, not when you're using the free version. That is what it is. And we want you to feel comfortable how much it's going to cost, what the product will do for you, how it's going to work before you even reach out to us. And there's loads of resources on there. Force24.com. I'd say to be safe, 3 or 4 o'clock. Please go and have a look.
just in case.
Just in case. Pressure's on the marketing team now. Pressure's on. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for your time today. And thank you very much for everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all again soon.
Appreciate it, Adam. Thanks,
Cheers,
everyone.
Adam.
Thanks
Thanks
guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.